The 2026 season hasn't even begun, and already Formula One is on the edge of a full-blown political war. No crashes, no races, no championships decided. Just one engine design that quietly changed everything. Behind closed doors, teams are furious, meetings are happening, alliances are forming, and at the center of it all, one uncomfortable question the sport can't avoid anymore. Did Mercedes find something brilliant, or something the rest of the grid simply can't afford to let exist? Because what's happening right now has nothing to do with racing lines or driver talent. This is about power, not just horsepower, but influence. And depending on what the FIA decides in the next few weeks, the entire 2026 season could be reshaped before the first green light even flashes. Every Formula One engine lives and dies by one quiet number: compression ratio. It sounds technical, but the idea is simple. Before fuel ignites inside the engine, it's squeezed. The tighter the squeeze, the bigger the bang. Bigger bang, more power. That's engine theory 101. And because that power gap can get out of control fast, the FIA drew a hard line in the rulebook. For 2026, the maximum compression ratio is capped at 16:1. No exceptions. No grey area. Or at least, that's how it looked. On paper, every manufacturer agreed. Tests were designed. Protocols were written. When the FIA checks an engine, they do it in a controlled environment. The engine is cold. It's shut off, sitting in the garage at room temperature. Under those conditions, the numbers have to line up perfectly. And when the FIA measured the Mercedes power unit, that's exactly what they saw. A clean, legal, textbook 16:1 compression ratio. Fully compliant. Case closed. Also, they thought. What nobody outside Mercedes fully appreciated at first was when that measurement mattered. Because engines don't win races while sitting cold in a garage. They win races at full temperature, flat out, lap after lap, and Mercedes designed their engine with that exact reality in mind. Inside their power unit, Mercedes reportedly used advanced alloys and materials that behave very differently under heat. As temperatures rise on track, those components subtly expand, not dramatically, not enough to be obvious, but just enough to change the geometry of the combustion chamber. And as those internal dimensions shift, the compression ratio climbs with them, quietly, naturally, within the physics of the materials themselves. So while the engine starts life as a legal 16:1 when cold, once it's running in race conditions, reports suggest that number creeps closer to 18:1. No illegal switches, no moving parts, just thermal expansion doing its thing. And that extra squeeze delivers real-world performance. No simulation can hide. The numbers shocked people. Engineers estimate the advantage roughly 0.3 of a second per lap. In modern Formula One, that's enormous. That's the difference between pole position and the third row, between clean air and traffic, between controlling a race and reacting to everyone else. And once rival teams started connecting those dots, panic set in fast. Word spread quietly at first. Whispers in the paddock. Engineers cross-checking data. Then the story hardened. According to multiple reports, the details became clear. A former Mercedes engineer shared insights into how the system worked. No official accusation, no public documentation, just enough information for rival manufacturers to realize this wasn't a coincidence. It was a calculated design choice that played perfectly within how the rules were written. That's when the pressure campaign began. Ferrari, already desperate to avoid starting another regulation cycle on the back foot, was among the first to push back. They argued the compression limit should apply at all times, not just during cold checks. Honda, supplying Aston Martin, backed the same position, worried about fairness in a brand new era. And Audi, still finding its footing in Formula One, made it clear they needed a level playing field if they were going to compete seriously. But the move that sealed Mercedes' isolation came from Red Bull. Red Bull is still playing catch-up on the 2026 power unit. They're not as far along. They're not banking on an early engine advantage. So politically, they had nothing to lose. If the FIA closed the loophole, Mercedes would take the hit, Red Bull wouldn't. So when the vote came, Red Bull sided against Mercedes, cold, calculated, effective. Suddenly, the score was 4-1. Ferrari, Honda, Audi, Red Bull, all pushing for a change in how compression ratio is measured. Mercedes standing alone, and that's more than enough votes to force action. That's when Toto Wolff stopped staying quiet. Toto Wolff didn't just defend the engine, he attacked the process. He accused rival teams of holding private meetings to gang up on Mercedes. He argued that his team had communicated openly with the FIA throughout development, that this wasn't some last-minute trick, but years of careful engineering built squarely around the written rules. From Mercedes' perspective, the frustration is obvious. They followed the rule book, they invested early, they took risks, and now, weeks before the season begins, this advantage could disappear not because it's illegal, but because it's inconvenient for everyone else. Wolff made it clear Mercedes wouldn't accept that quietly. Legal challenges were on the table. Political pressure would be applied right back, because once precedent is set that clever engineering can be retroactively punished, nobody is safe. Still, behind the scenes, another idea started circulating. A temporary fix, one that wouldn't require rewriting the rulebook overnight. Mercedes' fuel partner, Petronas, could adjust the energy density of their fuel. The fuel would remain fully legal, fully compliant, but slightly less aggressive under high compression. That tweak alone could blunt a portion of the extra power without triggering a regulatory explosion. A stopgap solution, while the FIA works toward a long-term decision. It wouldn't erase Mercedes' edge completely. And that's the key point many people miss. Even without this compression advantage, Mercedes' 2026 package still looks frightening. In Barcelona testing, they ran over 500 laps with confidence, while other teams played it safe. George Russell topped the timesheets and didn't hold back afterward, saying it was probably the quickest car he'd ever seen through that circuit. That's not something drivers say lightly. The car looked stable, smooth, predictable, and perhaps most telling, Mercedes had no fear running the new 100% sustainable fuel, while rivals hesitated. Some teams reportedly stuck with 2025 spec fuel out of reliability concerns. Mercedes didn't blink. That alone tells you how far ahead their development curve might already be. But time is the enemy now. The Bahrain test is approaching fast. Australia isn't far behind. The FIA doesn't want the first race of a new era clouded by protests, appeals, and political chaos. Yet rewriting regulations isn't quick. There are votes, legal wording, potential challenges, and Mercedes has every incentive to fight to the last possible moment. If the FIA acts quickly, Mercedes may lose part of their edge before the season starts. The grid tightens. The title fight stays open. If nothing changes, rival teams could arrive at the opening race furious and ready to challenge results, which would be disastrous for a sport desperate for stability. This situation is a reminder of how Formula One truly works. Speed matters, yes, but politics matter just as much. Teams form alliances, they push narratives, they weaponize regulations, and sometimes the fastest move isn't made on track at all. Mercedes has been here before. In 2014, when the hybrid era began, they were miles ahead. Rivals complained, rules shifted, and Mercedes still dominated 4 years. Toto Wolff knows this terrain better than almost anyone in the paddock. So don't mistake this moment for a collapse. It's a battle, and battles don't always favor the loudest side. The next few weeks will define the 2026 season long before the first lights go out. The FIA's decision won't just affect one engine. It will shape how innovation is rewarded, how politics influences rules, and whether Formula One truly wants bold engineering or safe conformity. One thing is certain, racing hasn't even started yet, and already the drama is at full throttle.